They told you Gog and Magog were just end-time monsters, that one day in the future they'll rise from the north and spark the final war. But what if I told you they already came? And not only that, they never left. The truth is this: you are already living in their empire. An empire so old, so erased, so well hidden, that even those who serve it today don't know where it began. Let me take you back to the place before time broke. Long before the age of nations and borders, there was a stretch of brutal, frozen land, from Eastern Europe to Mongolia. The steppe. A flat, endless plain where no cities grew. No scriptures came. No prophets walked. Only movement, only war, only survival. This was the ancient cradle of Gog and Magog. In every sacred book, they're named. In the Quran, they appear in Surah Al-Kahf, two corrupting forces sealed by a righteous king behind an iron wall. In the Book of Ezekiel, chapters 38 and 39, they rise from the uttermost north to attack the land of Israel. In both texts, God declares war on them himself. But the books never say they were giants or demons. They were something worse. They were humans, without mercy, without civilization, without God. Worshippers of spirits, animals, the sky, masters of the bow, riders of fire, nomadic tribes who lived to conquer. They didn't build empires, they devoured them, and when they struck, they left nothing behind. History calls them Scythians, Huns, Turks, Khazars, but behind every wave, the same pattern. From north of the Caucasus, they poured into Iran, into China, into Europe, leaving behind fear, flames, and death. So great was the terror that nations built walls to stop them. The Great Wall of China, the Wall of Derbent, the Wall of Gorgan, not to keep enemies out, but to hold Gog and Magog in. And then they disappeared from the headlines of history, no longer named, no longer feared. But they didn't vanish. They just changed form. Because one day, one of these tribes, the Khazars, did something no tribe before them ever dared. They changed their religion. Not by faith, but by strategy. In the 8th century, King Bulan of the Khazar Empire gathered his court. He didn't ask who had the truth. He asked, which religion gives us the best survival advantage? Christianity would tie them to Rome. Islam would make them subjects of the Abbasid Caliphate. But Judaism was leaderless, scattered, and flexible. So Gog and Magog chose Judaism. They adopted the Torah, the Talmud, and with it a new identity. Not children of Israel, but masters of Israel's name. And from that moment on, the bloodline of Gog and Magog entered into the spiritual bloodstream of Western civilization. You've been told that Jews returning to the Holy Land is a prophecy. But the truth is, many of them never left. They only changed names, languages, and bloodlines. The Ashkenazi elite, those who today run banks, media, intelligence, surveillance, trace their spiritual DNA not to Moses, but to the steppes of Khazaria. This is not conspiracy. It's prophecy. It's genetics. It's history written in maps, in blood, and in bones. And it's all coming back. Because Gog and Magog were never a future threat. They were the ancient architects of this system, and their empire is still alive. But if they rule this world, who sealed them behind the wall? And what happened to that wall? We're not done. We're just getting started. They came from the shadows of the Caucasus, and they were sealed behind a wall. But who built the wall? And what happened to it? The Quran tells us about a righteous king, Dhul-Qarnayn, a man of power and justice who traveled to the edges of the earth. At the northern mountains, he found a people so terrified they could barely speak. They begged him, "Ya'juj and Ma'juj are corrupting the land. Build a barrier between us and them." Dhul-Qarnayn agreed, but he didn't use magic. He used iron, molten copper, and engineering. He sealed them behind a mountainous barrier between two cliffs. And he said, "When the promise of my Lord comes, he will destroy this barrier, and they will surge forth from every hill, every hill." The Book of Enoch, one of the oldest texts in Abrahamic tradition, says they were cast into a deep sealed land. Even the Talmud warns that Gog and Magog would break through in the final days. So what happened to the wall? It eroded. Not with bombs, but with time, language, and lies. Because Gog and Magog didn't wait for the wall to fall. They went under it, around it, through blood, marriage, and infiltration. And they had a new plan. Not to raid civilization, but to become it. Let me show you how. In the 8th century, the Khazars sat on the intersection of empires. The Silk Road, the trade routes between Islam and Christianity. They taxed everything, sold everything, bought everyone, and then they converted. not to God, but to survival. They adopted Judaism, declared themselves Israelites, and erased their steppe ancestry. The Khazar elite became rabbis, merchants, courtiers. And then came the most powerful metamorphosis of all. They became Europeans. Through intermarriage, migration, and linguistic manipulation, Khazar identity merged into what we now call Ashkenazi Jews. But genetics doesn't lie. Studies show that many modern Ashkenazim carry no Semitic DNA. Instead, their haplogroups trace back to the Caucasus, to Turkic, Mongolic, and Altaic roots. Even their language, Yiddish, is not pure Hebrew. It's a blend of German, Slavic, Turkic, and Hebraic terms. A manufactured tongue. For a manufactured tribe. Their own scholars admit it. Khazar converts. Foreign blood. Foreign God. But the deception worked. By the time the modern state of Israel was formed, these descendants of Gog and Magog were no longer raiders. They were rulers. They held banking power in Europe, influence over monarchies, and later, control of American media, finance, and surveillance. They didn't conquer the world by force. They infiltrated it by identity. But prophecy didn't forget. The Book of Ezekiel says God himself will drag them out. I will bring you forth, O Gog, chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, from the uttermost parts of the north. He names their origin, Meshech, ancient name of Moscow. Tubal, echo of Tobolsk in Russia. Rosh, the head. The north, the leader. Even their modern headquarters is named in code. Tel Aviv sits not in ancient Judah, but on the land once ruled by Philistines and Canaanites. They didn't return to their land. They returned to someone else's, just as prophecy warned. And now they build walls again. Walls in Gaza. Walls in Jerusalem. Walls of silence, walls of censorship. But the real wall is almost gone. And the moment it falls, Gog and Magog will surge from every corner of the world. They already are. And now we must ask, what is their final goal? What power do they still seek? And why does every prophecy end in fire? They've already conquered geography. Now they're coming for your soul. Gog and Magog are no longer riding horseback across deserts. They wear suits. They run think tanks. They own central banks. They sit behind the algorithms that tell you what to think, what to fear, what to believe. They don't just control economies. They control meaning. This is no longer about borders. This is about systems. Let's name them the House of Rothschild, BlackRock and Vanguard, the Federal Reserve, World Economic Forum. These are not random institutions. They are spiritual descendants of Gog and Magog, not because of ethnicity, but because of alignment. Alignment with corruption, with power at any cost, with the ancient spirit of conquest that never needed a flag, only a throne, and now they have one. Look at the map again. The lands once called Khazaria, Scythia, Magog, today surround Russia, Ukraine, and Eastern Europe. Ezekiel warned, I will bring you forth from the north with many nations riding horses, a great company with buckler and shield. Today, it's not horses, it's missiles, AI drones, psyops. Even the Quran foresaw this. When Gog and Magog are let loose, they will surge from every hill, and the true promise will draw near. Surah Al-Anbiya 96. They don't rise from one place. They rise from everywhere. And in every continent, you'll find their fingerprints. In the stock markets, they manipulate. In the media, they shape. In the wars they fund, then televise. In the debt they create, then sell solutions for. They feed both sides of every conflict. They finance both puppet and revolution. They create chaos, then offer order. This is not new. It's the oldest strategy in history, order out of chaos. And the chaos is almost global. But why? Why rebuild the Tower of Babel? Why erase nations, genders, gods? Because Gog and Magog have always hated the soul. They serve the material. They worship the self. They want to build a world where God has no place, only profit, pleasure, and power. They are the architects of the modern delusion that man can be God, that flesh is divine, that AI can replace spirit. And in this final phase, they seek total control, total digitization, total surveillance, a global system with no escape. This is not conspiracy. This is prophecy. And when the wall is broken, they will surge from every elevation, and the true promise shall draw near. Quran, Surah Al-Anbiya, Ezekiel says God will strike them himself. He will summon storms, fire, earthquakes. The nations will turn on them. Their own weapons will destroy them. But until then, we live in their world. So what now? Do we wait for the sky to fall? Or do we wake up? Because the battle isn't only out there. It's inside. Every time you trade truth for comfort, they win. Every time you stay silent when lies dominate, they win. But every time you speak, every time you seek truth over fear, every time you resist the system of Gog, you break the wall a little more. The wall is crumbling. You were born at the end of the timeline. The final chapter isn't coming. You're living in it. And when history asks, "Where were you when the final war began?" you will say, "I chose the side of truth. I chose the side of God. I did not kneel to Gog and Magog. Awaken.